Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California channel. My name is Leslie and I am the pattern designer for the California sweater. And in today's video, we are going to be going over the pattern inspiration, sizing, schematics, yarn options, and knitting experience for the sweater. So if you're interested in knitting the California sweater, I hope this will be helpful. And without any further ado, let's get into it. I'm filming this on Saturday, September 14th, and today is the day that the pattern just went live on Ravelry. I'm so excited for this to be out in the world, for you to knit your own version of it, and so I wanted to take the time to sit down and tell you some of the details about it. So first, the pattern inspiration. I have knit two versions of a different sweater called the Lento that was published in Lina magazine. This is a raglan design where you hold one strand of fingering weight and one strand of lace weight yarn together on a large needle size to create a very open gauge fabric. I love this pattern. It's a very quick knit, it's very easy to knit up, and since I have knit that, I realized that I myself prefer to knit and to wear drop shoulder sweaters. The Lento is a raglan design, and so I was poking around on Ravelry looking to see if there were any patterns there that are similar to the Lento sweater but that were a drop shoulder, and I couldn't find any. I put a question box up on my Instagram stories to see if anyone else knew of any patterns that fit that bill, and literally there were no responses in my Instagram story. And so I figured, you know what, let me just make this pattern. At the time when I first had the idea, I hadn't designed any patterns yet at all, and I put it out there and I had a couple people message me like, oh my god, this is a great idea. I had someone who is a pattern designer message me and be like, oh my god, this is a great idea, and I was like, you should design this because I don't know if I ever will. It didn't happen. A couple months went by and here we are. I had designed my very first pattern, the Knit e-reader cozy, that is now live on Ravelry as well, and after I put that out, I was like, well, I can do anything. I can make a sweater pattern, no problem. And so I did. The pattern has been tech edited by the lovely Molly from the Purl Edit. The pattern has been tested by over 30 test knitters in all sizes from extra small to 4XL. There is a 5XL size for this pattern, but unfortunately I did not get any testers for this size, so just putting that out there so that you are aware. And now the pattern is live, so I am just so excited about it, like I've said before. Now that I've mentioned some of the sizing information, let me tell you a little bit more. So the pattern does have 9 sizes. It goes from an extra small up to a 5XL, corresponding to actual bust circumferences from 28 inches up to 62 inches. This is a sweater that has some positive ease in it, and so the intended amount of positive ease is about 5 to 7 inches of positive ease. Of course, with any sweater that you knit, make sure you pick a size that is going to give you the ease that you want. If you prefer to have less ease, you can choose a smaller size. If you prefer to have more ease, you can choose a larger size. This pattern is also knit with fingering weight yarn held with a lace weight yarn. It is preferred that a Surrey alpaca yarn is used for the lace weight yarn. I have knit 2 samples in this now. My first one, this purple pink version, I knit using a fingering weight plus a Surrey alpaca yarn, and in my opinion the Surrey alpaca has a larger halo and is softer in general compared to mohair, and the biggest difference is that I think it fills out the gaps between any stitches way better than a mohair does. The second sample that I knit is a fingering weight yarn held with a mohair, and I feel like you can just see more air, more gaps between the stitches with the mohair in the blue sample versus the Surrey in the purple pink sample. So that's the pattern recommendation. Of course, choose whatever fluffy yarn works best for you, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you that information. It is recommended to knit this pattern on a 6.5 millimeter needle, which is a US 10.5 for the main body, and then all of the ribbing is done on a 4.5 millimeter needle, which is a US 7. I, as a designer and just as a knitter, am a slightly tighter knitter. I knit my stitches tighter, so if you are not a tight knitter, maybe you're more of a looser knitter, you may need to go down a needle size. I had several test knitters who used a 6 millimeter or a US 10 needle size in order to get gauge. And the gauge for this pattern is 15 stitches and 22 rows per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So you can see when you're holding a fingering weight yarn with a lace weight yarn, that is estimated to be about a DK weight. I would say typical, DK weight sweaters are maybe knit on a range of like 3.5 millimeter up to a 4.5 millimeter needles. We are knitting this on a 6.5 millimeter needle, so it's much larger than your typical DK weight needle size, and that is what gives you this, what I call an open gauge, because the fabric is very open and very airy, and it really lets that fuzzy lace weight yarn fill in the gaps between all of the stitches. And it also helps this sweater knit up extremely quickly compared to other patterns. I actually knit my first sample, and I knit both of my samples in the size extra large. I knit my first sample in 11 days, which was just crazy to me, that it didn't take me very long at all. I was on vacation visiting my parents at the time, and so I did have maybe a little bit more downtime than I would normally have in my day-to-day life to knit this. The second sample that I knit took me about a month to knit because I was also working on other projects at the same time, and I have learned recently that knitting the same project back to back is not super inspiring for me. So there were some times where I didn't want to work on it, I wanted to work on something else, and that is a personal thing. In terms of the yarn required for this sweater, for the fingering weight strand, you're gonna need between 720 yards up to 1,275 yards. For the first 3 sizes, I think you can really get away with 2 skeins of fingering weight and 2 skeins of Surrey alpaca, which is a pretty low number of skeins to use for a project like this, assuming your skeins are 100 grams, by the way. If you're using 50-gram balls, just take that into account. For the middle chunk of sizes, I think you're probably going to need 3 skeins of each, and for the larger chunk of sizes, you may need 4 skeins of each. Just make sure you're also taking a look at if you would like to make any modifications to this pattern. For example, the body is knit, if you knit it to pattern, at a slightly cropped length. The length from the underarm is 9.75 inches. So if you typically like to knit a bit of a longer body, actually on my second sample, the blue one, I did knit about 1 inch longer, so it's about 10.75 inches, and so I did have to use a bit more yarn in the second sample. So make sure you're taking those calculations in mind, and if you're not sure, it's always a little bit better to buy more yarn, have a little bit extra, so that you don't run out, because running out is the worst, right? The yarn that I used for my 2 samples, for sample 1, which is the pink purple sample, I partnered with Camry from Golden Hour Knitwear, and she dyed up this special custom color for me that we are calling Coastal Crush. And if you're looking for something a bit more commercial, I did knit my second sample in Knitting for Olive, both their merino yarn, the colorway that I used was called Soft Blue, and their soft silk mohair in the colorway Dusty Aqua. This was a fun color combo for me because I feel like the soft blue was a little bit lighter, the Dusty Aqua a little bit darker, so there's a very slight marling effect on this fabric that I really love, and you can really see it when the light shines on it. Okay, let's talk about the knitting experience and maybe some of the techniques that are used in this pattern. I did list this as a confident beginner pattern. I think if you have never knit a sweater before, you could absolutely knit this pattern. Now this is a drop shoulder, so there is some knitting in panels and knitting flat before everything gets joined in the round. So the way that this works is you're going to cast on the back panel first. There is no short row shaping in the back panel of this design, but the way that the front panel is designed, it comes down pretty far on the neck before you join the neckband in the round. So there shouldn't be any issues with the front riding up and giving you that like choking feeling that some other patterns have when you don't have short rows in it. But first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna cast on the back panel, then you're going to pick up stitches for both the front left and work that, the front right, work that. You're gonna join across the neck by casting on stitches here using the backwards loop cast on. You're going to finish knitting the front panel, and then you will join the front panel and the back panel in the round to continue knitting the body. Then the sleeves are picked up on both sides and they are knit down to the cuff. This is a tapered sleeve in the design, so there are some decreases spaced evenly along the sleeve, and then it's a 1x1 rib at the cuffs, at the bottom hem, and then you will also pick up and knit a 1x1 folded over collar at the collar. One of the other pattern modifications that I made on my second sample was I did knit the collar about 1 inch longer, and so I wanted to show this to you as well in case this is another modification that you're interested in. Like I said, knitting a drop shoulder may sound a little intimidating at first because of all the picking up stitches that you have to do, the extra cast on stitches, but the pattern also includes links to tutorials for all of these techniques, and once you learn how to do it, like, you're set, you're golden. You can do anything and you can knit almost any pattern. So I really say it's worth it to give it a try, and I hope all of the resources that are included will make it easy for you to knit. So that is all the basic info on the California sweater. I am going to close this video out with some clips of me wearing it, along with some clips of some of my testers and their patterns that they have knit up. I really want to say a huge thank you and a huge shout out again to all of my testers for their help getting this pattern written up, tested up, and for them taking their time and working on this pattern. Again, also a huge thank you to my tech editor for helping me get this pattern ready. I can't believe it's now out in the world and in your hands. I can't wait to see any of the projects that you make. If you do knit up this pattern, please tag me if you post any photos on Instagram, on Facebook, or on YouTube. You can tag me at Knit California, and there is a hashtag for this pattern as well. It's the hashtag Knit California Sweater. So again, enjoy! Have a great time with it, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!